Hello, my Pilates lovers. Thank you for tuning in to All Things Pilates. I'm your host, Darian Gold. Each episode, you'll get to hear a new guest share his or her knowledge, insights, and experiences. Together, we explore the ongoing evolution of the Pilates method, as well as its connection to other modalities, such as gyrotonic, yoga, podiatry, and chiropractic. I now present to you the many aspects of this beautiful, complex, and life-affirming discipline. As I've mentioned in the past, Mr. Pilates developed his method in part by observing feral cats and watching how their spines flexed and extended, and from those observations developed his mat repertoire. Teaching the mat exercises to his students gave him ample opportunity to define and refine his technique, and through word of mouth, medical professionals took notice, especially chiropractors. Eventually, he would share his method with the chiropractic community, evidenced by a plaque which hung in his studio. It read, "This is to certify that Joseph Pilates is awarded this appointment of merit in appreciation of his valued assistance in the presentation of the postgraduate course of the Academy of Chiropractic." My guest today is Dr. Charles Zollner, a chiropractor, and he's here to discuss in more detail the benefits of chiropractic care. Dr. Zollner uses not just his hands to manipulate and adjust the spine and other parts of the body, but an adjusting tool called the Pro Adjuster. What makes Dr. Zollner's approach to chiropractic unique is he borrows from an amalgam of techniques, combines his adjusting tool skills, and has created one modality called synergy technique. And on the phone with us right now is Dr. Zollner. Hi, Dr. Zollner.
Hello, Darren. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us on All Things Pilates.
Of course.
My very first question is, what attracted you to chiropractic?
Like so many chiropractors, it was personal experience. I'd always been pretty active growing up. I've done sports, things like that. It wasn't until my late 20s when I was lifting weights at the gym, one day I lifted a weight wrong. It was not a heavy weight, but I lifted with my back, not my knees, the opposite of what we're always told, and instantly felt a sharp pain in my low back. And I thought, well, it'll get better on its own. And it kind of did over the next few weeks. And then I did something, just another small movement, it flared up again. And then it kind of got better, and then I'd do something and flare up again. This went on for about a year. But after about a year, it flared up. It felt like a bomb had gone off in my low back. And a friend said, "You should go see a chiropractor." I went and saw somebody a friend recommended, and wow, made a big difference. And I was already at a crossroads with my profession at that point. And when I learned about chiropractic, a profession where I can help people work with the body in a natural way, I thought, this is great. This is for me. I went back to school and became a chiropractor.
I'm curious about that first adjustment or the first treatment you had. Do you remember what he or she did with you or to you?
Actually, I remember it well because it's unlike anything I'd experienced yet. The chiropractor I originally saw did the traditional chiropractic adjusting where they, for lack of a better word, pop or crack the bones. I'll be the first to say there's nothing wrong with it, and a lot of people find it scary, but it's just a little bit of gas escaping from the joint when you crack a knuckle. So he put me on my side, put his weight on it, and rotated the low back a little bit to get that rotation. And I felt, that pop, just that sense of it. But I also had just the idea that, yes, this is what my body needs. It felt right. And sure enough, I started to recover from that point.
It sounds like me with Pilates. You know from your very first treatment that this was it for you?
Yeah, I like the fact that it was natural, the fact that we weren't covering up the pain with drugs. We were getting to the root of the issue. If the spine is twisted, in the most simple form, the spine is twisted, you want to untwist it, get motion back into those joints, and then the ligaments, muscles around it, the nerves can start to heal. And so it's really working with the body, just giving the body a chance to heal itself.
How long have you had your practice?
I've been at it now for over 21 years. It's amazing how time just zips by.
And you have a special tool, adjusting tool called the Pro Adjuster. Can you describe what it is?
Yes. So I went to a chiropractic college in Atlanta, the largest in the country, that exposed us to a lot of different chiropractic techniques. And I learned one technique called pure still wagon technique, which really looked at the spine like an engineering structure. And that really appealed to me. And part of that technique used an instrument. This is before the Pro Adjuster was invented, but it's kind of like the predecessor to it. An instrument which is like a little tiny jackhammer to tap the bones into place. And then later that evolved into the Pro Adjuster, which is a computerized version of that. And so basically a lot of patients are familiar with maybe an activator, spring-loaded instrument that gives a little click, tap the bone into place. The Pro Adjuster is repetitive. One patient might call it an activator on steroids. It's a series of little small taps, and I can change the force from very, very light if it's an old lady to a little bit stronger if it's a football player. And the computer's monitoring the motion. The computer shuts off when the bone has stopped moving. And I can use that to move the bone in different directions that I can't move by hand. And so it's a more gentle, more specific way of approaching things.
Does that mean the Pro Adjuster is appropriate for all back problems then at all different ages?
It's very versatile in that way, in that if a big person comes in, I can turn up the force and use it on them. And again, if someone's just comes in a lot more pain or a child, I turn it down and I can use that. But it's just one tool that I use. It's probably my single biggest tool. I use it to adjust most of the spine. I use traction. I have a traction table to mobilize and open up, for example, the joints in the low back. A drop table, another way of gently adjusting the spine. So it's one of many tools, but that combined with everything else, I find I can pretty much approach any patient that does come in.
Do you find that you reach for the Pro Adjuster first before your hands?
Yes, I do. I still do some manual adjusting. The nice thing about the Pro Adjuster and my technique is that if people don't want to be cracked, no problem. We just won't crack at all. There's a couple situations where the best way to adjust is still by hand, and I'll do that. But I would say pretty much 99% of my adjusting is a combination of Pro Adjuster, of which that's the vast majority, a little bit of traction, a little bit drop table.
Does the Pro Adjuster, who invented that, by the way?
There's a company called Sigma Instruments that created the Pro Adjuster. Actually, the name now, it's marked under Ultraline. And it came about in the 90s with the predecessor of the Pro Adjuster. They called it the VF Adjuster. Same thing, little electrical instrument that tapped, but didn't have the computer behind it. It was the same idea. And then they started using a sensor that helps to adjust the spine, and they adapted that from testing equipment used in the space shuttle. And so it's basically engineers working for Sigma Instruments that developed that technology, combining the adjusting instrument with a computer that has the sensors to monitor the motion and analyze where the spine is most locked up. So it's really a nice piece of technology.
Do you have to do any kind of continuing ed like Pilates instructors do?
Yes, as a chiropractor, we have to have 24 hours of continuing education in the state of California.
Yearly?
Yearly, yes.
I have a question about all of us who are, no one gets away with this, but as we are maturing in our lives, it seems like we get shorter. Why does that happen? And in your opinion, do you think that Pilates is a way to help keep this shrinking feeling from happening?
So the reason people shrink with age is actually threefold. One reason is that we all tend to get more hunched forward with age. We get that forward head posture. And the sad thing about that is it's happening earlier and earlier. I'll see kids just in their 20s walking around. They look like cartoon characters, just hunched forward, because nowadays people spend so much time either on the computer, hunched forward, or on their cell phone, looking down, or at a desk, writing, or watching TV, hunched forward. What happens is our pec muscles get tight. The muscles in our back get weak. The neck goes forward. The ligaments start to stretch out. And so as we get older, no one gets straighter as they get older unless they work at it. We just get a little bit more hunched forward. And so I will remedy that by adjusting the person, bringing those joints back into place, give them some stretches they can do, some exercises to get those muscles stretched and back. So that's one reason people get shorter. The other reason is if people have osteoporosis, they will get little compression fractures. And this is less common, but many times you will see people just very hunched and almost crunched down, especially women. They have osteoporosis. That's from those little compression fractures. Literally, the spine is collapsing. And there's not much that can be done there other than preventing the osteoporosis. The third reason you get hunched or shorter with age is that the discs that are in between the joints, like little sponges, they get nutrients from fluid going in and out as the joints move. And if you don't get that joint motion, because the joints get restricted, then those little discs literally start to dry out and get thinner over time. And so that makes the whole spine come down a little bit. And so to answer your question, where does chiropractic and Pilates fit into that, is that I can adjust the joints, get motion into them, but then you can work on the spine to get things more stable, to get things straighter. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch in that me or any chiropractor can mobilize those joints, get better alignment, and then through Pilates, strengthen the muscles, especially the muscles in the back that tend to get neglected, the rhomboids. Those are the muscles between the shoulder blades, to bring the shoulders back and down and really just get the person more straight and also more stable so that then they go through life with greater stability and they can not injure themselves again, or little motions won't misalign things.
Would someone know if they had compression fractures?
Not necessarily. Again, that's not the most common reason people shrink with age, but many times it can happen and people just don't know it. Other times it can happen and it's just very, very painful. Basically, the bone has become so thin that you can just lift something or get up out of bed and just that shift creates a little bit of a collapse of the structure. And there's not much that can be done there. Then the bone will heal a little bit as best as it can, but it won't regain its shape.
Is there pain associated with that moment when there's a little collapse happening?
Often, yes, it may be severe pain, and often it may go unnoticed. So it's both extremes.
Would you happen to remember when you had a Pilates lesson with me?
I remember it well, yeah. That was fun. And a little bit humbling, because I always feel like I'm in good shape, healthy. I exercise. And when you work with me, it really showed how weak I was still in my core and the muscles that stabilize my spine. And so just those simple exercises we did showed me how much more I needed to do. And you gave me some great things that I could do at home, which was really good. And so I was able to keep up with that.
Are you still?
I still do a version of them. So I still work my core. So yes, you got me into working my core.
Okay.
Which is something I wasn't doing before. And so that's given me more stability. Absolutely. And that really just kind of did show me how much Pilates does dovetail with chiropractic and how the two work well together. I mean, in a sense, I'm working on the structure of the spine and the joints, and then you work on the soft tissue, the muscles, strengthening and stabilizing that. So we're really getting both sides of the issue.
It's a perfect marriage, right?
I believe so, absolutely. You do the soft tissue, I do the bones.
One question about ligaments.
Mm-hmm.
Do ligaments, once stretched, is that it? Or can they come back to their original state? They
can heal to a certain extent. So ligaments have some flexibility. You kind of think of them as rubber bands in a sense. They wrap around our entire bony structure and create stability. And then you have the muscles on top of that create even more stability. So many times over time or with injury, those ligaments will become stretched out. It's almost like a rubber band picture an old rubber band that's just kind of floppy. Fortunately, the body can heal. And so if we can get the joints back into place, then there's a little bit more room for the ligaments to heal. For example, I do a lot of work with extremities, the ankles, the knees, the shoulders. Say a knee is injured and it misaligns so that the lower leg is a little bit outward, lateral. So that starts to stretch that lateral ligament in the knee. If I get it back into place, then that ligament can heal and regain a little bit more strength.
Through Pilates, for example.
And then I would say yes. And then with Pilates, then you can come in and strengthen muscles around that area, create even more stability, and then that ligament can get a chance to heal even more. Now, I will say that there is actually a procedure called prolotherapy, which I don't do, but it's one of the things I will refer people out to, where if the ligaments are just too shot, too floppy, people aren't holding their adjustments, then I'll send them out. And what prolotherapy is it's done by a medical doctor. It's a procedure where people get their ligaments injected with a very light irritant, and it stimulates a little bit more healing and even a little bit of scar tissue in there that tightens up the ligament. So that helps create more stability in that area. Most people don't need that, but it's certainly something that can help with really bad cases.
And you've sent some of your patients to this type of treatment?
Yes. I definitely specialize in chiropractic, but many times patients will come in and they need something else. They need, they're not in good shape. They need more stability in the spine, so I'll send them out for Pilates. They have ligaments that have an issue, send them out for prolotherapy. Many times they have a lot of chronic pain from fibromyalgia. They have something more going on, and I'll refer them out to a functional medicine doctor. And so I definitely specialize in chiropractic, but I'm aware that chiropractic is not the end-all of healthcare. I'll refer out to people as needed.
Do you adjust children?
Yeah, I love working on kids. Again, with the Pro Adjuster, I can just be very, very gentle. And the nice thing about kids is they respond so well. They don't have a lifetime of trauma and bad habits yet. So with kids, usually it's just a few adjustments, and they're doing great. At the same time, I'm always a little surprised by how much I do see with kids, where they'll come in and already their pelvis is a little shifted, and one leg is shorter than the other because the pelvis is shifted. And I'm thinking, like, boy, if they grow with that spine shifted, is that going to cause problems down the line, even scoliosis? So it's really nice to be able to nip problems like that in the bud.
Now, is this something that is hereditary, or they're at their young age are playing sports, asymmetrical sports?
Things like scoliosis and injuries like that, I think it's a combination of the two. And a lot of scoliosis, the medical community will call idiopathic. And when they call it idiopathic, I think it's just structural. They'll say, they don't understand why the spine is curving. But I'll look at the pelvis. If the pelvis is unlevel, then that's why the spine is curving. Or the pelvis may be good, and then the next vertebra up, we have that twisted. So at some point they injured that bone, it twisted in one way, and then the rest of the spine is compensating. And then as they get older and grow, then the spine just kind of grows in that bad position, and it perpetuates itself. And so, again, catching things early can help quite a bit to really mitigate that.
Have you ever brought your work into schools or have talked to kids about the importance of chiropractic care?
I've done talks in the community, but that's a good point. I've never actually approached schools to talk about that. And that's more something where I'd need to talk to the parents about bringing their kids in rather than the kids themselves as I think about it. But certainly, much like we emphasize prevention with dentists, I think dentists are great. Dentists don't say, okay, your teeth are good, come back when you start to hurt again. So they say, no, come back every 6 months to get your teeth checked, make sure there's no cavities, make sure the gums are good. I think chiropractors could do a better job of emphasizing that, having people come to get checked long before they get low back pain. Get checked. Look at the alignment. Let's nip things in the bud. And then 10 years from now, you won't be complaining about neck pain or low back pain or whatever because we got to the root cause earlier on.
It's a great idea. Speaking of spinal issues, you are a very tall guy. How tall are you?
I'm 6'6".
Okay. 6'6", or someone who's 4'6". Does it matter if someone's spine is excessively tall or short in terms of spinal issues?
I believe so, and I think it's purely a matter of physics. If you think of a long lever arm, like a crane, there's more stress on that crane versus something that's just like a person who's short and stocky. They're going to be a little bit more stable, low to the ground. Someone like me, I'm tall, rather thin. When I walk, when I run, when I do things, there's going to be more stress on my knees, on my pelvis because there's just more leverage into those joints. And so that's one variable. Obviously, a short, stocky person can get in a severe car accident, and then all bets are off. But as just in general, yes, I do find that taller people seem to have a little bit more issues. And this is in the low back because of like I was talking about, the pelvis can shift. But also a tall person like me is always looking down at the world, and so that can put more stress on the neck. So, yes, I think there's definitely a role to be played there.
Does that mean basketball players work with you since they know that you know what it's like?
I've certainly worked with athletes, and different sports are going to have different stresses. Football, unfortunately, is one of the worst. Because there you're getting really hit hard. But, a basketball player, absolutely, running through the court. They're very tall, and they're going to get a lot of stress on the body. But the nice thing about work with athletes is that kind of like kids, you have people that are in really good shape. Their bodies respond well. And in some cases, they're like finely tuned Ferraris where if things are out of alignment, it really affects them. You get things back into place, and they really respond well, and you see the difference right away. So that's kind of satisfying to work with athletes.
Have you ever had a patient that you just couldn't help?
It certainly does happen. And one of the things I try to emphasize with my practice is I'm not a 3 times a week for months on end kind of chiropractor. I really want to see how the person's going to respond. So usually when a person comes in, I will see them 2-3 times a week, 3 weeks. If they were in a car accident, then 3 times a week for 4 weeks, something like that, and see how they respond. If in 3 weeks they're good, then we're done, and we can talk about having them come in maybe once every 3 weeks for a tune-up if they want, purely up to them. Or if in 3 weeks they're feeling 50% better, then we'll continue a little bit more until they're good or as good as they're going to get. Admittedly, not everybody responds to care. And so if somebody comes in 3 weeks, no better, I'll reevaluate. If we haven't taken x-rays, we certainly can take x-rays, make sure I'm not missing something. And if it's not, if the person's not responding, then I don't want to really waste their resources. Then it's time to refer elsewhere, get another pair of eyes on the situation, see what's going on. So the human body is so complex that no one person is going to have all answers for all people. I think it's important for any healthcare practitioner to realize that.
And you believe in x-rays, correct?
I think x-rays are a great tool. We have digital x-rays at the clinic, so the amount of x-rays is very, very low. One of the things I emphasize to people is that if you were to fly cross-country, just from being in the upper atmosphere, you would get more x-rays than from our x-rays at the clinic. And I would say it depends on the situation. Probably about 50% of people that come in, I'll x-ray. If somebody comes in, they just have a little bit of shoulder blade pain, a rib is out, a new pain, I won't x-ray that. If somebody's had low back pain for 15 years, it's radiating down their leg, then I want to take an x-ray and see what's going on there, because there we're talking about a more complex case. And of course, I'll always take the minimum views necessary.
Do you have any first-time programs that you offer for people who want to learn more about you, or some sort of special that you offer for people to get them in the beginning?
Well, we do take quite a few insurance plans, but for a cash patient, we offer a cash discount. But what that is just $125, and that entails the initial exam where I sit with the patient, talk to them, find out what's going on, and then, of course, examine them, literally get my hands on the spine so I can feel where it's hurting, where the misalignments are. Also includes any necessary x-rays, if we take them, and then the first adjustment. So with that initial fee, a person can get a sense of what I'm about and what is going on. And then each visit after that is $60. No surprise fee after that. Yeah.
If anyone's listening right now and they want to come for a consultation or to learn more about your synergy technique, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, the most direct way is to call the clinic. Number is 415-747-8980. Or they can just find more out about me on my website. That website is www.drzollner.com. That's DRZOLLNER.com. And explain more about what I do on that website and my approach.
Excellent. Oh, it sounds fantastic, that Pro Adjuster. Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Zollner.
Well, Darren, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, and I hope to see you soon for a Pro Adjuster adjustment.
Anytime you want.
Okay. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Are you sitting up or standing taller now? I hope you are. If you'd like more information about traditional Pilates, of course, you may visit my website, DarianGold.com. And, like I always ask you, please do take some time for yourself to consciously breathe. And when you do, please lift your head, lift your spine, because they will lift your spirit. Have a fantastic week, everyone, and stay as aligned as possible.